Hey, I fixed it. All right.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey, bud, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? It's going okay. How are you doing?
Still alive.
Yeah. Been one of those kind of weeks for you.
No, I just always like to acknowledge my,
Oh, okay. That's good.
position.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like nowadays it's not a bad place to be
That's
alive.
yes, absolutely.
Oh man.
What are you up to?
Playing a mobile game a little bit.
Okay.
Not a whole lot else.
Okay.
How about you?
I just got done with a webinar and answering emails and finishing our support ticket with Panopto to get it integrated into Blackboard, but it's fixed now, thank God. I like I gave these workshops last week and like made a whole website about like this is how you use this tool, and then Blackboard did an update and broke the tool the next day.
Oh
So met
god.
100 people in the workshop over 2 days. So of course I had 150 emails that were like, I've tried everything
Yeah.
you showed me and it's not working. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Our help desk got bombarded. And then we
So
got out to Blackboard. They're like, we'll fix it next week. And I'm like, are you fucking joking? So but they fixed it today finally, like just now. So I was sending out
yeah.
emails telling all those 100 people that was like, hey, it's fixed. That finally.
Does Blackboard update like automatically
Yeah. Well,
without talking to you guys?
they sent an email to the wrong person telling them that the update was going to break our integration and we needed to contact them. But I did not get that email, and the person who they sent it to is on vacation, which is, I guess, so it's not really their fault, but we should have had other people in that contact list. But anyway.
And also the person that is on vacation should have set up a forwarding email for.
Yeah, also that would have been helpful too. Now that I think about it, yeah, it is what it is.
I think that's one of those scenarios where I would have been an unreasonable dick. Like, not because
not, yeah.
not because I think that it's deserved exactly, but just because I know that Blackboard's a big enough company that if I was an unreasonable dick to them, they would fix
they don't. We dropped them as a service, so they don't give a shit about us anymore. So I don't think they.
Oh really?
Yeah, we switched over to a different LMS called D2L.
Oh, so you just haven't finished that process
Correct.
yet?
So we did sign the Blackboard contract. Well, they've been charging us $100,000 a year, and then we said, oh, we're gonna like, this is too much. Can you bring the price down? For years, and they were like, no, sorry, this is what we charge. And then when we told them, okay, well, we're ending our contract now, we're switching to this other company, and then they fired back, oh, just kidding, it's $30,000 a year. And we're like, are you fucking joking? No, goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how you do business, fuck you.
I know. We've been paying them $100,000 a year since 2010, and they're like, that's the price for years and years and years. And so,
well, that's the thing too. Is it's not even like close, right?
No,
like,
it's not
it
even.
Went from $100,000 to $30,000.
I know, because D2L is $25,000, and they were like, we can do 30, and we're like, you don't even match your competitor. No thanks. And it's a worse.
Not even that. Like, how are you going to guarantee that in a year or two when they if they were to like match D2L, it's like, how can you guarantee that in a year or two when D2L goes away because they can't get business?
Right. Yeah.
That like they don't just like jack the price back up and say sorry about you. Like,
exactly. I mean, it's a Comcast way of doing business, or any other insert company name here. So.
Yeah. That's
like, oh, you want
garbage.
internet? It's $100 a month. Same thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, my whole philosophy with that kind of stuff is like if your software costs what it costs, and that's your process, like, and you're consistent, then fine. Right. But that just means in the marketplace.
They were consistently gouging us for many years. So they're consistent in that respect, but yeah.
Right. Well, there are two reasons your software can cost what it costs. Reason one is there are a bunch of actual costs to updating, maintaining, and integrating the software that like make it very expensive to have as software. And reason two is either because of particular IP or because of targeted like timing or spacing. Like, basically, there's something unique about your product that nobody else has, right? And if that's the case, then like you can charge what you want too. Like that's like the Apple way of doing business, right?
Sure, yeah. And I mean, for years, Blackboard was the only game in town as far as LMS goes, so it's understandable why they did that in the beginning. But now they're our competitors.
Well, that's the thing, is if you exist in the former space, right, where it's expensive, then you're fine, because like even if you're the only player in town, no one's gonna enter into that space, because like a lot of times like what you find in the, well, there's two options. Like one is like they charge still way over the top and they sort of exist in both places, right?
Yeah.
But the other more likely scenario is that like to be price competitive and like have people buy their product, they end up operating like it with just a reasonable margin.
Right.
And so as a result, like nobody wants to enter into the space because the startup cost is too expensive for you to undercut a small margin, right? Like, and so like, and then you're just sort of the only company, and there are examples of that happening.
Right.
But the other option is like, well, if you don't, so if you live in that other space where it's like, oh, we just charge, because like we've got some differentiator, that means you're a target. And if you don't understand that as a company, you've got a problem.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Like, because you're operating with huge operating margin, and other companies want that. They want to operate with huge operating margin.
Yes.
And so they're going to figure out ways to make that happen.
Yes.
And if they can make it happen by just undercutting what you're charging and selling the same thing that you already made, they'll do it.
Yeah.
And so, like, your sort of solutions are to, have some IP, right? Or generate some IP that makes it at least legally scary for people to try to compete with you. And if you can't do that, then, your other solution really is just to identify the market ahead of time and like target your competitors, like D2P or whatever, like, and just like when those competitors show up, is just get rid of them, like either buy them out or like contract your margin aggressively in advance of them, and then just like let them die out because they can't compete, and then jack your prices back up. But like, so I mean, like, I know these are all like sort of horrible like ways to look at things, but it's like, but as a company, if you're not willing to do any of that stuff, and like you're already charging like a huge margin, just making money hand over fist anyway, then like you're basically putting yourself in a position where this should happen to you, and fuck you for being a bad company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't even necessarily care about getting gouged. Like I don't like it, but I understand like if you innovated and came up with a thing that like, is unique.
Yeah. If you're selling the iPhone, then yeah, I guess it can be $1,000 and we don't have a choice. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you're selling something that's kind of
came out. Yeah, not now.
Yeah, if you're selling something that's unique in the market, like you get a certain amount of like, okay, like yeah, that's unique in the market. Like I can't fault you for that, right?
Yeah.
But like if you're also a company that then chooses to gouge people, like I then expect you to also be the kind of company that should be fairly ruthless.
Yeah.
And if you are, like, then you better be really good at it, because if you're not, then like your customers are going to get really upset, and that's kind of what I'm. It's like it's really frustrating when you see that, and it's like, oh, and they're not very ruthless. Like it turns out that they just had this really good thing and then decided to charge people a bunch of money, but they're not very good business people. Exactly. But they want to be like a ruthless company.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I hate that.
Yeah. Anyway, we are leaving them, but
yeah.
we did pay for it for another fiscal year. Yeah, so we could have like have time to back up all the stuff just in case we needed it, because COVID.
Did you guys go? Oh well.
Yeah.
You guys go? Oh, we'll take you up on that $30,000 a year, and then like use that price for 1 year, and then kick them.
Yeah, we're dropping them for sure after a year. When we're switching over the campus to D2, the other company this year already. So, but we're just keeping it live in the background because we need it. We might need it.
Right, but I guess my question is, did you guys let them know that you're dropping them or not?
I think so. I think so, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that. I would have said thanks for the price change, and then I wouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
Because like stuff like this can come up, right? And then you just you treat them like, oh.
Yeah, Vicky very well may have done that. I don't know what she did, but.
Yeah. It probably depends on whether they asked for like a yearly contract or not. Right?
They do. It's
like if they asked for.
It's a yearly contract.
Right, but when they said we can do $30,000 a year, but we want a 5-year contract or something, right? Like.
Oh no, I don't think they did. I mean, she told us that we have it for a year, but no one's going to use it. We're going to change the URL and just keep it hidden just for us to use.
Yeah. Then back to my original point, I would have been an unmitigated dick to them because from their perspective, you're a customer, and they don't have any reason to believe that you might not still be a customer.
Yeah. And this other company we've gone with have been incredibly awesome and helpful and nice. So
Yeah.
giving us all kinds
Well,
of
they're
free training and
incentivized to
updates.
do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually one of the few things that I really, really like about my company is they've gotten big enough in a couple spaces where they could be kind of dicks and like overcharge and be
Sure.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
but they've
But
never done it.
good. That's very good. That means you have good
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like they do this at like quarterlies and stuff. They talk about like what their goals are, right? And their goals are never to like make the people that own the company rich or anything. It's just like they want people to have jobs and they want to like like support people's families and their interests and they want to have a place where you can do all that kind of stuff, in Sacramento. And like for the most part their business decisions like match up pretty closely with that, right? Like they want to make money because they want to grow the business and they want to have a better successful business where people can do those sorts of things. And one of their goals is to have places where people can grow. And it's like you can't do that if your
Yeah.
business doesn't get bigger, right?
Yeah.
So like I get all that stuff, but then it's also like we're gonna match that or combine that with the fact that like you know uh, like we also don't want to be dicks, like we don't want to get in
Yeah.
too far over our head because like I mean, there are a couple systems I work on, for instance, right? Like we could like bend the customer over a barrel, and they would have to. Like
Of course.
now, that have to for a year, have to for 2 years. Like sometimes, like the difference like is stark enough that like for them to get to a place where they could replace or manage our software would be so prohibitively expensive that we could really pull, you know, uh, grab them by the nose if we wanted
Yeah, of
to.
course. Yeah.
Um, but like we just don't do business that way. Like,
Yeah, thank God.
you
I'm
know,
glad.
yeah, it's like the things worth what it's worth to us. I mean, it's making us decent money. Now the as an account manager for the firm, like one of the places where that becomes complicated is when we have stuff that goes the other direction. Like sometimes we don't have as much bandwidth to cover it. Like when stuff is like not as profitable as we'd like. But we have to maintain it because like of relationships or whatever. It's
Yeah,
like, well,
of
how do you do
course.
that? And it's like, well,
Or you
the
guys
answer
have
is
like systems that like deal with like social benefits, right? That's what Steve said. Like
yeah,
things
yeah. I
things
mean,
that are like necessary for like people to survive. They're like pretty important systems.
they are. I mean, and that's
Steve said it's
oh,
like having to do with like welfare benefits or something that he was working
yeah.
on.
We do
Yeah,
all
and
kinds of like
I
state
was like,
programs
holy
that are
shit,
super
don't fuck that
important.
up because people will die if you do.
Yeah, I mean, we try our best to not fuck it up.
I was just teasing him, but I mean, yeah, that's pretty fucking important.
Yeah, well, the truth of the matter is that like we do our best, and like sometimes that's successful and sometimes that's not. But like, um, I think more than that, like we're in kind of a good position because like you know that's what I mean by having the potential to have customers over the barrel, right? It's like we have a system that does welfare benefits, for instance, right? And the state maybe paid some money for that, and the amount of money they paid was like based on the labor and effort involved in getting that system up and running. But historically, what the state doesn't do really well, and what most states don't do really well, is like after we get done building the thing, they don't want to own it. Like
Right.
they just want us to kind of maintain it.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
And
That's,
and, and,
that's
and that
normal.
that's great for everybody, right? Like we get an additional contract, they get to not have to maintain the thing that they don't want to maintain. So it's fine. But the thing that's weird about it is like that then puts us in a position where a year, 2 years, however many years from now, like we're now owning this system. The state technically it's theirs, but we understand it in a way that they don't at all, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so we could say, hey, your system now costs like $300,000 more. And they'd be like, we don't want, that's ridiculous. Be like, well, the alternative is you can be the agency that cuts all these welfare benefits. And like, the thing is, from our perspective and from optics, it's not our call. like we're not the bad guy for charging them more, and they
know.
would have to pay it.
Yeah, they would.
Like,
Yeah.
but you know, like we just don't do that.
Right.
Not how we do business.
Yeah, yeah. That's good.
But other firms do, and like
Yes.
that's a very real thing. Because like the flip side is like challenging but true. It's like, because you could argue, well, you know, like you scratch their back, they'll scratch yours, but that's just not true. That's not how the state sees vendors, right? They see vendors as commodities,
Yeah.
and so like it's like, well, you know, if you treat them badly, yeah, but like they think we're all doing that, and so like it's really hard to like sort of shatter that you know perception. So like at the end of the day, they're gonna like buy the commodity that gives them the best deal initially. And so the way that a lot of firms handle that is they give them a really good deal initially, and then they find a way to screw them later.
Yeah.
But,
sounds familiar.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Sorry you're having to deal with that, but it sounds like you've got like a
No,
good vendor
it's
now.
fine.
And,
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, I was just telling you what was going on.
yeah, Blackboard's. I remember when Blackboard first came out as software, I was like, in 10 years, this software is going to be like really, really frustrating for people that like are old right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no one used it until COVID. We all had to.
Well, I mean, I think even like, well, because when I was at Wabash, like we had Blackboard.
Yeah, me too. I don't remember
and it was like
any professors hardly using it. I mean, maybe.
I had 2 professors that used it for like a significant portion of things, but not like everything.
It's usually if they use it, they'll use it a lot. At least here, that's how it's been. We've had heavy users or non-users.
And then I think probably half of my professors used it begrudgingly, so they had like I don't know the syllabus posted there and some basic information.
Yeah, that's it.
And then you know a bunch of them just didn't, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or did whatever the absolute bare minimum required was, like to have a site that didn't have anything on it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm even at Wabash when I saw it, I thought like, okay, so like this isn't going to be a big thing now, but it is it's going to be the thing. And then in law school, a larger percentage of professors used it for more stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you'd still have those older holdouts that just like either like you did the absolute bare minimum, or in a few cases at my law school, because there's like other political stuff at play, right? Like they just wouldn't use it, like obstinately wouldn't use it for like the bare minimum.
We've had that too. But, I mean, we never required it. Although we are now. We are now. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Now, if you're opposing it,
we have a bunch of
you're an
remote
asshole.
Students. Yeah. Well, you can't because some of your students are going to be remote, so you have to deal with that. So.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, not just I mean like that, but like if you were like, oh, I have this other solution, or whatever, like you're just the asshole now that's not like that's making social distancing difficult.
You know what surprises me now I think about it is when I went to grad school and I was teaching at Purdue, they didn't have an LMS. And that was 2010 through 2013. I mean, I guess but I wrote a site in Notepad and put it on my H drive and like shared the link to the students. Because I made my own like English 101 course website that had the discussion boards and all that, and I had to use a free discussion board that had ads in it. I mean, I was a poor grad student. I didn't have money to like buy a discussion board tool, and I asked my department, and they were all clueless because it was the English department. I mean, so I was like, okay, well, I want discussion boards. So I used this free tool that had ads in it, and I just told my students, hey, here's how you install an ad blocker. And you use the discussion board.
That's funny.
That's what I did, yeah. I mean, we didn't have it. There was no LMS, so I just made my own website.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to go about doing it.
Yeah, I mean, they gave us 200 whole megs of network drive space, so I put a website on it. On my H drive.
Yeah,
like a school like Purdue, it's crazy. You would think they'd have an LMS. I'm sure they do now, but sure. I had come from Wabash, which had Blackboard, and I had some experience with it from there. But and then when I had to teach a class, I was like, "Is there a blackboard here?" They're like, "No." What are you? They're like, "What are you talking about? It's in the hallway. Here's some chalk." Like, no.
Right. Yeah, I think that the thing about Wabash that like, I mean, it's sort of the thing we always talk about when we talk about Wabash, or at least amongst the people that I know, the alumni or whatever. Like it's a weird place because on the one hand, like they're very, very old school, um, but then on the other hand, like they just have like insane discretionary spending, and
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, small student body, yeah.
but like
I
also
guess
just
so.
like huge endowment, right?
Yeah, was it 300 mil or 400 mil? I don't. It was in the 300 area, I think.
It was like 360 or 370 when I went there. Yeah,
Was it?
so like,
Yeah. Okay. So what would have been that? Yeah. I don't know what it is
yeah,
now.
so
That's the same
I mean,
endowment that this school has that I'm working at, and it has double the student population of Wabash.
yeah, not to mention the fact that that was almost 15 years ago, or it was more
Yeah,
than
that's
15
right.
years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, their endowment's probably $500 million.
You think?
You
I don't
know,
know. I think ours is only like 400 here.
yeah. I mean, so I think that
And we just drew a
Wabash was
huge
always,
portion from it for this fall.
yeah.
And nobody gets raises this year.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Well, they're just trying not to furlough or lay off people, but um, if the students don't come back to campus, apparently they have to, which I didn't realize
Yeah,
that much of our revenue came from room and board, but I apparently most of the revenue is room and board and not tuition, which
that
is,
makes some sense.
I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that, to be honest. It's
I mean,
60, it's 60 grand to attend this school, Jesus.
well, it probably depends a little bit on the school, the individual school, and how they, manage their stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm totally ignorant of all the,
But it seems like I could see some sort of an argument to be made for a lot of schools um, charging for room and board and scholarshiping out tuition as a way, like I'm depending on, again, the state and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm sure there are some tax benefits to doing it one way or the other depending on the state and how everything's structured. Um,
yeah.
but like I could see that being a thing, right? Because it's like essentially like your tuition could like structure out as a loss, and room and board is just like, is like more of like a materials thing, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Plus, room and board, usually, if you're providing housing for any long-term kind of thing, like, more than 90 days, a lot of states have benefit programs that are structured. So if you're a private institution, like, you can take advantage of those benefit structures for housing, assuming people are paying it. Um, so there might be some incentives in that regard to keeping permanent housing available. But
Yeah.
it's, yeah, it is ludicrous that's the thing. Like, I remember thinking that about Wabash though, like when I was thinking about their endowment, because at the time it was like a third of the student body it was like $1 million for every third student, right? Like
Yes, that is
333.
crazy. Yeah.
So it's like, well, that's not, that, I mean, you're operating in the green. You guys are making money every year, and
I
like at the time
think
they had,
so. Oh, Wabash. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and Wabash also like was like in the middle when I was there of like a lot of major construction projects, all of which had been funded out of the endowment. Like, so like when they say the endowment has X number of dollars, like the money for those construction projects has already been moved. Like
Is
it's
that
not in the
right?
endowment anymore. Like it's already been paid for.
Okay.
Just because of the way that stuff works. Like
Okay.
you can't like leave the money in there, like because you need to pay for things
Right.
permanently,
I
right?
would assume so, but yeah, I didn't know how it worked.
Yeah, and so and a lot of times they do fundraising campaigns for those specific things, and that money never really sees its way into the endowment numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like there's like a shorter term like holding place that they have for investments like that that's like much more safe.
Okay.
Um, that they use, like, so they get some interest off of it, but it's not like the endowment.
Gotcha.
Um, so anyway, yeah, like, so I was like, okay, so you guys are just like at the end of that cycle, and then when that's done, presumably the fundraising won't cut off.
Right.
Um, you know,
They never stop asking me for money. I don't know about you.
they never ask me for money. I'd give them
Seriously?
money. Yeah.
Oh, I get letters constantly. For
You know what's
years,
funny?
even when I changed addresses, they've always found me.
Yeah, the conversation. So what's funny is IU won't stop asking me for money. And the conversation I have with IU, like, so I have this with each and every person that calls me for money. And like they'll call me and they'll be like, "We want money," and
No,
I'm
they've
like,
never. Wabash has never called me, but they do send letters and emails.
"Oh, that's probably why I don't get it, because like my email, changed."
So did mine. I don't know how they got mine. I mean, maybe I gave it to them, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
But I don't know, dude. They've
but
always
they could
found
get it
me.
off.
Yeah, they've always
I'm
found
sure
me.
they could buy that information,
I
but
mean,
like,
it's on LinkedIn for God's sakes. That's probably where they could get it. So.
sure, I am too. They don't
Right.
they don't bother me. But
Yeah. It doesn't bother me, but I've never given them anything because I've never really been in a position to do so. I mean, I could, but no.
that's the thing is, I think Wabash is probably the school that I would give money to if I
Yeah, I
choose to
would
give
too.
money to.
Yeah, I'm not against it.
But like I wouldn't give money to my law school.
Right.
And so like when they call, like my response is like they're like, "Oh, blah blah, blah, you should help us." And I'm like, yeah, so like I passed the bar, but I'm not an attorney."
Right.
And then I just let that hang. And then, like they'll try to like spin it or whatever, or like the smart ones will. Other times like that's just where the call kind of ends.
Yeah.
Um and then like like my response is basically like, yeah. When I was in school, um there was a weird mistake that was made in the U.S. News and World Report that made the school I attended at IU Indy significantly higher rated than it was supposed to be.
Really?
Um,
No. I mean, I've heard that's a great law school anyway.
it is good, but it was rated like just below Bloomington by like 2 spots.
Oh, okay. And it shouldn't
And
have been.
so no. So the number they reported that was significantly off was the faculty to student ratio.
Oh, well, we all lie about that.
But
yeah.
like, if you all lie about it, you all lie
Yeah.
similarly about it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so the problem is that like it made it look like they had a lot more faculty, which is one of the most expensive things.
Yes.
And so anyway, like they issued a correction the following year, so my law school class was significantly outperformant compared to all the other classes at that school.
Mm.
That's fine. I don't care. I ended up going to law school for $9,000.
Wow.
But like when I was there, as a result of that U.S. News and World Report, which was erroneous, the administrative board made a bunch of decisions to cut a bunch of programs they were doing to build up the IU Indy Law School because they were worried it was going to overtake Bloomington. And then, in addition to that, so like the report was wrong, got corrected the next year, but they were so worried about having a good law school in Indianapolis that was better than the one in Bloomington, which cost a lot more money, that they cut a bunch of programs that they were going to do
to make it worse.
Right, which negatively impacted my actual time at the
Yeah,
school.
of course it did. You were there at that time, yeah.
Right, and then like after I graduated and was looking for work, they weren't at all helpful. Like and I don't know that this is part of the same thing, but like they didn't help me find a job. They didn't get me in contact with attorneys. They didn't even help me like draft a resume or anything like that. I was 100% on my own.
Right.
Like, and I tried to get a hold of students, alumni services and student services to like get help there, and they just weren't helpful.
Yeah, that's awful.
And so like I think student services or alumni services reviewed my resume once and like made some corrections for me or something, but like in terms of like giving me connections or any of the things that you would want from your university, right? Like if you're reaching out for them
Sure.
for help,
Yeah.
especially as a new grad,
Yeah.
like they weren't able to do any of that. So like basically I'm like, yeah, so due to an error in U.S. News and World Report, like my class was like significantly above where we should have been. You're welcome. Because I'm now a graduate, I can represent your school at better than you would have otherwise been represented. but the administration chose to cut a bunch of stuff to IU Indy and fund Bloomington because they had some concerns. You're just calling for IU generally, so I'm positive that you can't tell me for sure that this money is going to IU Indianapolis. And even if it was, I'm not an attorney. One of the reasons I'm not an attorney is you guys didn't help me find a job after I graduated from school with a law degree and passed the bar.
Right.
What incentive do you think I would have to give you money?
Wow.
And then that's always where the conversation ends.
Yeah.
Like,
when I said we all lie about the student faculty ratio, I was kidding. I mean, at least we don't lie. A lot of people get the impression we'll lie because they'll get in one class that's big. And they'll be like, what is this bullshit? And it's like, well, you signed up for Bio 101. I'm like, I'm sorry. But your other 16 classes you're going to take throughout your, whatever, they're all like tiny and great. But because, it's all anecdotal. Like, oh, I had one class that had 50 people in it. And that makes me angry. A lot of students here do that. They're like, they lie. Oh. And I'm like, we didn't lie. I really think they don't. I just think that they have the one experience, especially if, they're bad students and they're in a giant class, then they don't get the professor like emailing them and be like, hey, why weren't you in class today? You're not gonna do that. It's a giant class. Yeah, which is what this is the treatment they normally get here.
Yeah, I think my response when I said, yeah, everybody lies, or but basically, is all I mean is that like, when metrics like that are generated, like, the industry decides how those metrics end up being really treated on the back end.
That's true. Like, I just wanted to correct that because I was like, we don't really lie. We don't really lie. That there's a general impression that it's a lie, but I think it's anecdotal and
But I think that's the truth. Is that like, maybe you guys do lie a little bit, like, right? Maybe when there's the faculty to student ratio, everybody like everybody in the industry like hires more support staff if it counts towards that number because they know they can pay them less money but make that number look better. I'm not saying that's the thing that actually happens.
That's me, support staff. But yeah.
Right. I'm not saying that actually happens, but if that is the case, and I don't know if it is or not, like maybe that's a way that the whole industry lies, right?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
But everybody's kind of cheating in the same way, so it's okay.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the same way in my industry, like.
Whether the number is 10 to 1 or 20 to 1, it's all going to be similar across the board anyway.
As long as everyone's lying the same way, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, in my industry, one of the things that happens very frequently is they ask for experience that is not needed for the job that needs to be done.
Sure, of course. Because that's the metric they know to compare things.
Because it's a hard number. And so, realistically, there are two problems with that. One is, like, it's not needed. And two, a lot of times, it's not cost effective. Like, they're saying, well, we need to pay somebody $80 an hour for this job, and we need them to have, like, 15 years of Oracle experience. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that person makes $250,000 a year, and they're not coming and working for you for $80 an hour, and we're not going to be able to prime them and sub them out at a rate that they're going to be willing to net 80, right? Like, this is not gonna happen. So, but like, and that stuff happens, or like the best one, the technology that I've worked in for a long time, Dynamics CRM, they would often ask for more experience than was chronologically possible.
Yeah, like longer than the platform is or whatever has existed. Yeah, that's a common. I see that on Reddit all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Like CRM didn't exist 20 years ago, and you want 20 years experience with it.
Right, and so you just get super creative with how you manage that. Like, so like we're somewhere in the middle. Like, we don't cheat as much as a lot of firms do. Like, a lot of firms just plain lie.
Yeah,
they like make stuff up entirely. We're like, we like dance the line a little bit.
Sure.
And the only time we sort of, I don't even want to say it's lie, because the only time we kind of lie is when it's a situation like that where it's like you ask for a thing that doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist, yeah. So it's like I don't know how to even answer that question, yeah.
And our first way to do it is to actually submit that as like a thing they need to fix.
Sure, yeah.
But sometimes they'll come back and say, no, that's what it is. And so when that's the case, they're like, okay, so you're expecting everyone to lie.
Yeah. Like what the fuck do you expect?
And then we come up with some way, like there's always some way in the way that they've worded it or something, where you can like make it fair. Like you can go, okay, well, like you said it like this way, so like the whole thing's in dynamic CRM, and like everywhere else you've said like that they need dynamic CRM experience. But right here you just said CRM experience. So we're gonna take that by the letter of the law, and we're gonna apply all the other potential CRM experience that they could have.
Hey,
and
that's
like
your lawyer training.
Well, you've got to, right?
Yeah, you have to, especially if they make an unreasonable, stupid demand like that.
Right. And well, the reason is that like 90% of the time, the reason that it's structured that way is because somebody made a mistake. And when it is, and you point it out, they fix it.
Right.
10% of the time, the reason it's structured that way is because they're trying to get somebody in, like by being shifty. We want this firm to work with us, and so we're going to make it look like it's impossible to meet these requirements to get this firm in. And so when that's the case, like,
how is that
the only solution is to do the same thing that they're going to do and figure out how they're doing it.
Right.
And then sometimes you get in, and then they're like, oh shit, they got it, they figured it out. And then like the other firm will contest it because they wanted the job and they had it wired for them.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, well, this is what it said. And they'll be like, well, that's not what we meant. And so you're like, well, that's what you put in the contract. So you got two options, because the state always has two options. You can sign a contract with us like you agreed to, or you can restart the whole process, which usually takes months.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And almost always, if you get to that point,
they'll sign the contract.
The state will restart the process.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then because they wanted the whoever they wanted. And then the Department of Technology will get involved. And they'll say, what's going on over here? We noticed that, like, you just reissued this thing, and it looks really kind of shady now. We're going to take over this project. And usually what that means is that, like, they're
gonna actually hire the best tech firm for the actual job.
Well, it's not even that. Like, Department of Technology is just always looking to expand their authority and control more of the IT departments and all the different divisions. That's, like, part of, like, what they try to do as a body.
Got it.
And so, like, they're always looking for angles to do that. And so, like, if you look like you're doing shady stuff, that's a way for them to say, you're probably doing shady stuff. Like, we're just going to take all this over.
Yeah.
And they might do it proactively, right?
Sure.
Or they might do it reactively. Like, if that project then isn't successful in 3 years, then they'll say, hey, what was this whole process about? You guys really don't have your act together, depending on who's doing it and how they're managed. It's like, it's fascinating. That actually happened to us. There was a legal case management system that we bid for the state bar, and it was like a $5 million system. We came up with the best bid, and there's like, the bidding process takes months, and it has all these things, and there's ultimately like a gigantic and huge scoring system that gives you an end score, and the end score is supposed to win.
I see.
And we won by like 7%.
Wow.
And they awarded it to the number 2 finisher.
What the fuck? Why? Because it was somebody's brother or something? Was it that?
So what it was the number 2 finisher was a legal case management system company that had worked with a newly appointed deputy commissioner at a different department. So that was what we determined, was they had a relationship with that deputy commissioner, went to the department.
It's like straight up nepotism corruption, right?
So it was wired for that firm. The best part about this is that software at the old department did not do well. Like, nobody liked it. It had like a bad reputation.
Wow.
And so like there was, so like it was kind of interesting, right? A little shady.
Yeah.
And so we were faced with the sort of choice of contesting it. To be clear, if we had contested it, what would have happened was they would have had to restart the whole thing over again. But we knew that they would do that because they had already basically looked at us and said, you won by a lot. Like 7% is a huge amount. Usually it's like a 1 or 2% thing.
Okay. I have no idea. Got it.
Yeah. Because like price is usually a big chunk of it. So like you outbid somebody by a lot.
Got it.
And so as a result of all that, you looked at it and said 7%, you know, like, we don't care, we're going with these guys, and we know that it's against the rules. Like, if we can test that, we know that they're going to start the process all over. But then that also means that the state bar's pissed at us.
Yeah. Right.
And we're like, we're not willing to do that,
Yeah,
so we just let it go.
Yeah, that's probably the good move there.
Yeah, but it was frustrating because we worked really hard on it.
Yeah.
Like we worked really hard on the demo and stuff. And it was like I'd worked on 2 demos that we basically came in second on. And one was a $25 million system for Nevada, and
Wow.
we got in late, and we didn't even know like who the competitors were. Apparently, there was a competitor that was there for like 4 years working the deal to get it like set up.
Wow.
And like we showed up at the last minute.
You snaked it from under.
And we almost beat them.
Wow.
Like we almost like and we talked to a couple of contacts we had over in Nevada after the fact, and they were like, yeah, if you guys had won on score, like you won enough people over with your demo presentation that like we would have went with you. But there were a couple things that in the scoring were sort of wired for the other firm that we couldn't do exactly, and so we couldn't do those things, and so we lost some points there, and that's why they won.
I see.
But anyway.
Fun stuff.
Yay. Yeah.
Still playing that mobile game?
Yeah, I'm playing mobile games. I always play mobile games. I'm quitting one mobile game.
I mean, it was fine. Whatever. What mobile game are you playing again? Raid Shadow Legends? No, just kidding.
No. I was playing a mobile game called Monster Legends.
Okay.
which is excuse me.
You're good.
It's kind of a Pokemon-esque game, but like you collect a bunch of monsters, you level them up, you give them gear and equipment and stuff, and then you have them fight each other. And that's kind of, and there's like a little bit of like a SimCity kind of structure to it, where you like set up these different habitats and level them up and kind of maximize your outputs and coverage, and there's lots of like meta structures in place to like make it kind of interesting. So it was really fun for a long time, but they changed the game a little bit and they made it so now it feels like a chore. So I'm not interested in that anymore. So yeah, I have a team that I actually am a co-lead of, although I don't do anything literally for them at all. So I think I'm gonna let them know that I'm gonna be done at the end of this PvP cycle, because I know they need me to finish in the top 10. So I think is their goal. So I'm gonna do that, and then I picked up a new mobile game though that I'm playing with some friends, and I like it really well because it's like a small team mobile game, so you can have like 4 people.
That's nice. That's always good. Nice.
Yeah, and it's kind of like MMO-ish. Like you have a character, you like level up their armor, level up their skill. And then the as far as I can tell, the single main like sort of meta larger structure, like looking at how to maximize your progression component of the game, is like you basically farm through ads idly, and then when you log in you can challenge bosses, and as you successfully beat bosses you progress through the game. And beating the bosses initially is just easy. You just click, and then eventually, like, you get to a place where like you need to arrange your skills in a certain way, to like, or have certain skills equipped to like counteract that boss's different abilities, to progress. And then beyond that, like your whole team has to kind of coordinate to do all that stuff, to get through bosses. And so then it starts to feel a little bit like strategizing for like an MMO first kill, and I really like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm trying that out, and then I still play Pokemon Go. So.
Oh right, Pokemon Go. Yeah. That's cool. Give me 1 sec. I gotta be right back.
Yep. Cool.
I mean, we could play something, but I don't think there's anything we both play besides Star Citizen.
Yeah, I mean, right now I've been hitting.
Destiny?
Yeah, Destiny's been pretty fun. I'm kind of in a. I don't know. Destiny's weird.
I did download that game you bought me, Gun something. It was okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be honest. It didn't really grab my attention, but it was okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like if you play it, I don't know. You get through it. Like you play a couple of rounds of it, and like it starts interesting. But I think it's a game that's a lot of fun with friends.
Yeah. I played it for myself for about an hour, and I was like, okay, I get it. It's okay, but I haven't gone back to it.
Yeah, well, maybe we could play it sometime. Because like I said, with friends, it's interesting because there's a bunch of strategy stuff you can do as a team.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I was annoyed that I was locked into that one character, and I guess you have to unlock the other characters.
Yeah, well, I think there's only one other character, and you just have to level up enough to get to him. I never even actually used the second character because it's like more of a damage-oriented character.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, I mean, the game's a roguelike, so, like, mostly what you're trying to do is not die, you know? And so, having a character that's more damage-oriented, it's like, at least conceptually, I was like, it might be better, but I was like, yeah, this seems like it's going to be worse for me. But, like, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so the thing that makes it really kind of neat is that, like, so, you know, like, so there's, like, the two different kinds of things you collect that aren't guns. It's, like, those random scrolls, and then you also get, like, ability scores.
I don't really remember it, to be honest. I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I
there's,
don't remember
like,
what the game was called.
so you have, like, a skill tree that exists outside of it, kind of like League of Legends, right? Where, like, kind of level
character. I was able to change, because I only had 2 abilities to use at a time, or 3, and I changed what they were.
Yeah, you could, well, I think which guns you could use, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right, because, I got different guns. Like, I picked up a snipe one time, and there's like a shotgun that was really good, and some kind of like poison damage pistol that seemed to kick ass. But I didn't like it, but it was like did the most damage. It's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So like, there's a little bit of that kind of stuff, but like, so at a very high level, they have like sort of 3 things that happen inside a single game, and then 1 thing that happens outside of it. What happens outside of it is you can, like, you have that like talent tree that you can restructure whenever you want and get new talents. And those are, like I said, just kind of like a League of Legends kind of thing where, you know, like, you know, it's like, oh, you get extra hit points or you do more damage, but they're pretty like, I mean, I guess they are important buffs and they do make a difference, but like, they don't really impact the feel of the game. And then inside the game, you have 3 things that I guess you could use to pick up guns. And all of those guns have, just like WoW, they all have like rolls on them.
That's what it was, yeah.
And you can get different abilities and other stuff. And so sometimes, Evie, hush. What do you want? You want a little bit of food? Alright. Sometimes, like, those rolls can result in, like, guns that behave very well because, like, they have rules that have synergy.
Well, like, I don't know, that poison gun synced with an ability I had, I think. It was like, increase your poison damage.
Right. But, like, so the other 2 things that you can get are, you can get, these scrolls, which are kind of like items, but they're just passive items.
Okay.
And they all have different abilities, and you can pick them up. And so sometimes, like, the scroll might say, increase your poison damage by 10% or something. But usually they're, like, a little more nuanced than that. They're like, in this kind of scenario, this will happen, but otherwise this happens. So there's, like, and some of them have trade-offs. Like, it gives you a big benefit for one thing, but then it takes something else away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You do 1.5 times as much damage, but you can no longer crit.
Oh, that would be bad. You can no longer crit. That's pretty brutal.
Right, but like for some weapons that are kind of like are rapid fire and kind of hard to hit with anyway.
That is more DPS, yeah.
Yeah, and those weapons might be good with particular perks or rolls on them, right?
Sure.
And so like, you would kind of like within a single round, you would kind of structure a build around all these things synergizing. So that's kind of like the way that it's supposed to work when it works well. And so that's really interesting on its own, and that's kind of what made me think it was interesting is like, as you get a little bit of game knowledge, it starts to be like, oh, okay, so like this, like, because what you get is random. Like the scrolls you get are random, so like you can't just always do the same build. And then the same thing with the last thing you get, which are talents. Like there's a single cycle talent tree that you start to unlock, and you get different talents and move further down the tree. But which talents you get is completely random, except that you need to like unlock a floor before you can move to the next, level. So like you'll get whatever the lowest step is on that particular tree branch, randomly. But like, there are a bunch of different options for the stuff that you can get. And so like you might get something that's like increases your elemental damage, and then you'd be like, oh, you know what? Like I'm gonna pick up this poison thing because it's gonna like do synergized damage. But then sometimes you might not get that, and you might just get, I don't know, like, oh, like there's like a bunch of grenade talents you can get where like okay, like now my grenades are gonna be awesome, so like I'm gonna prioritize like, a build that works with grenades. I don't know, like there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. So anyway, that's all really cool. But then when you get with friends, it's even better because those little scrolls that drop, most of them you can trade with each other. So like,
so that makes the 2 players much better.
Yeah, like the 2 or 3 or 4 players, because then it's like, okay, Adam's got like this, and you can trade your guns too. So like, Adam's got this really sweet gun, but he doesn't like it, and maybe his stuff doesn't work with it.
Yeah,
he's gonna give that to Kevin, and he's gonna give these 2 scrolls to Kevin.
It's just like everyone's favorite game, PUBG. Hey, do you have a 6x scope? Yeah, I have a 6x scope.
It is a little bit like PUBG, except that like there is downtime where you can do that, and there is no penalty.
Yes, plenty. Yeah.
In PUBG, the problem is it's like, do you have a 6x scope? Yeah, I have a 6x scope. Can you give me a 6x scope? Yeah, I got it for you. Bam! Oh, we got killed.
I guess that's why I harp on that, because every time I play with not with Steve so much, but when I played it when it first came out, everyone was like so concerned about what gear they picked up, and we always just died in like 2 seconds. It didn't matter what gun I was holding in my hand, it still doesn't matter when I play that game. It's like, I don't, and then people are like, do you want this? I'm like, I don't care. It does not matter. It so does not matter. I'm going to die immediately.
Yeah, no, I agree. The reason I used to win a lot early is, and the only reason I like playing the game is the people I played with got to a point where they just didn't care about gear. Or the people I played with a lot, we just tried to get as far as we could every time. And like, if you had time, it'd be like, oh, so it became like a proactive thing. You'd be like, I have an extra 2 times. Does anybody need it? And I go, yeah, I do. And he's like, okay, I'm running this way. I'm like, do you see me on the map? Yeah. I'm gonna drop it right here. And if I don't get it, I don't care. And if he doesn't like, he doesn't have to do anything. And then like, it's like, okay, well, if I don't get it, no big deal. Like, we don't care about the gear. We care about getting to the last circle and getting in a fight. And then, we'll win if we are better shots and other stuff, but like we don't need the gear to win that. And actually I can't tell you how many times like we showed up with like like the lowest tier gear you could possibly have in the final circle, and we still win.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I just found it funny that other people seem to care so much.
Well, yeah, because I think the problem with that game is that like it fixates so much on the gear. Because there's so much different gear and so many different things you can do. But like the reality is, it's still basically Counter-Strike.
Yeah, exactly.
You still have one-shot headshots for like some guns. Like it's a team-based strategy game that has gear in it, but it's easy to get lost in the gear and forget that that's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the point I want to make.
Alright, I need to let you go though. I gotta head out.
All right, cool.
I'll catch you later, bud.
All right, yeah, catch you later, John. totem? Oh god. That's mistake. I'm gonna teach the minion this time. Where is it? Fuck. How do we go this way? Thanks. a pen in my pocket this whole time. I would have done something. God damn it. still feel like there's a pin in the pocket. Healer we got this time. A priest. Yes. What is that? What the fuck is that? Okay. What's your name? Let's see. Let's go see. That's pretty good.